Hi, my name is Stephanie Rogers, and I'm the Executive and Artistic Director of the Anderson Center. And today I'm happy to be interviewing Cameron Jarvis and talking with him about his work. Cameron is from Cottage Grove, Minnesota, and is currently based in Philadelphia. And he was an Anderson Center resident in 2016 with support from the Jerome Foundation and our Emerging Artist Residency Program. Cameron, welcome, and could you please introduce yourself and tell viewers a little bit about your artistic practice and your medium?
Hello, thank you for having me so much. Yeah, as you said, my name's Cameron Jarvis. I was an Anderson Center resident in 2016. Um, about me, I'm from Cottage Grove originally, but my parents moved from the Caribbean island of Antigua a few years before I was born. So I'm the son of immigrants, a transplant, or native to Minnesota, but my parents transplanted. And that has started to come through a lot in the work that I've been making pretty much since my time. It's kind of transitioned since I was at the Anderson Center, but I've made a lot of work about like where I am and trying to understand I guess the physical characteristics of the particular places I'm in, and that has expanded into thinking about the systems and the decisions that brought me to those places. And now um, through, I guess, after grad school, I'm thinking about what to do next, or like it's kind of been like past, present, and maybe I'm thinking about future coming up.
And you and I have something else in common, which is that we're both alumni of Tyler School of Arts MFA program and moved from Minnesota to Philadelphia, which is a really particular built environment. And I found it to be quite a transition coming from a background in rural Minnesota and even the Twin Cities. It's just a very, very different space. And I see that a lot in your artwork. Could you talk about the experience of moving to Philadelphia and how that started getting integrated into the work you were making?
Yeah, similarly, I had or have had a lot of experiences like in nature and just being in Minnesota and driving to get to most places that you go to is a particular experience. So moving to Philadelphia and living in the city for the first time, but then also an East Coast city where like I guess thinking about the density of people in the city, and then just the East Coast has so much more of that, and really wanting to understand how that influenced how things get built and then I guess rebuilt, or how things change, but then trying to understand like what that does to and for people, and how I guess how the people then make different decisions as well. So I started soon after I got to Philadelphia, I started collecting a lot of objects. I was trying to be more immediate about having, I guess, seeing something, having an idea and putting it into a piece. So instead of working with images and figuring out how to manipulate paint in order to recreate an image that I was interested in, I was really just picking something up that I identified with or thought was important and bringing it inside, no matter, like I started just picking up the craziest trash and Philly, because of the tax structure and because of the way that the city is, it's just like a lot of parts of it are very dirty and just have like people's lives kind of on the street in a, like it's trash, but then it's also things and things that people have forgotten. So I was really interested in the information that's in there, and was um, trying to use that instead of paint to get ideas across.
There's so much there that I get out of looking at your work, especially having lived in Philadelphia and I'm sure walking some of the same streets that you were walking regularly. Philadelphia even has the recycled artist in residency program where artists are literally going into a junkyard um,
Yeah.
and making art out of trash. But at some point during my time there, I came to this idea that maybe it's more honest to actually have to live with our discarded objects. Like, we as people create so much refuge every day, and we just get to make it go away and not think about it or deal with it. And in Philadelphia, you have to actually look at what gets discarded and think about your relationship to that. That was how I approached it, and seeing your work brought that back for me.
Yeah, that was like just that this place is different from this other place, and like starting from that and trying to figure out why was like a huge part of it. And like hearing you articulate those thoughts, like that is a lot of what I was thinking about. But I'm also like hearing you articulate that reminds me, oh, it is like it was about trash and about like what we can throw away and like our relationship to things. But then at a on another level, I was trying to encourage people to expand it to just what is hidden and what is I guess what do we see and expect to see, and then what is outside of our view.
Thinking about graduate school and whether people should go get an art degree or not is something that I think about a lot. I definitely got things from that experience, but I also think that there are lots of ways to learn how to be a good artist, and a formal education is not the only one, and I'm not even sure it's the best one. Could you talk a little bit about why you decided to go to graduate school?
I really wanted to go to graduate school because at like by the middle, the end of undergrad, I had realized that art was my thing and felt that I could pursue it and felt that I had the support to pursue it. And I really wanted to find out what was next or find out what I didn't know. I'd known that I was interested in being an artist for like when I went into undergrad, I had known that I wanted to be an artist, but didn't know how to connect that intention and what I was doing then to, I guess, getting a job as an artist. Like as a young person, it's very much about what are you going to do and how are you going to have money? And those things, it's not that those things should be the same thing, but the relationship between those two things is very mushy. And then capitalism is very good at just saying, it goes this way, it goes this way. You get your job and you get your money. So I was hoping to find out how to get my money from making my art in grad school. And grad school really blew that apart. But I guess expanded, now I don't look at the question from in those terms. I look at it from like different terms. I guess separating them as how do I get my money, and also is my art what it needs to be?
There's so much I relate to in that. I told my parents that I was going to be a graphic designer to convince them to let me major in art, because that was kind of like, okay, have skills, get paid.
I guess there's that deferment of you don't go to art school. I guess that clear, like you did or you didn't, but then just within people, I guess within artists or people who call ourselves artists, and then people who don't call themselves artists, but like still like are making art in the things that they do, like how much of that deferment of I need to do this for money instead of fulfilling myself. Yeah, Philly feels like a very DIY place. Uh, there are a lot of folks who like just want to do something and feel that they can and are doing it and welcoming others. And yeah, I'm really trying to figure out like where I fit in that, like what am I doing and where does that fit? But while I'm figuring that out, it also feels like I'm just in a very solid community of people. And now that the protests are popping off like that, I guess that it's just gained a new level of urgency. And what we are doing is still art, uh, mixed with just, I guess, more fundamental ways of supporting each other.
How have the protest and it's like this conversation has been going on for years, and yet it's also hit a turning point in the last couple months. I hope it's a turning point. It feels like the conversation has shifted. How have either the pandemic or the death of George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd, and the new urgency around Black lives, police reform, and getting rid of systemic racism, how is that affecting your work?
It's really just a lot. Like, that's the only thing that you can, or the only thing that I can say about all of it. The pandemic and like being locked in was an amazing chance for me to just stop. And like, being in grad school was a time of feeling like I was going too fast, and like there's like felt like there it felt like I wanted to keep going, but there wasn't enough space to be a person. And that's how being in the world increasingly feels, especially as a Black person. But you're not allowed to show yourself as being under pressure or in trouble, I guess. Like, even if it's not immediate trouble, like being in trouble and like reckoning with that trouble and making, I guess, doing what you can now to make yourself safe for that trouble that's coming. So grad school, like being in that heightened intellectual space, felt like talking about the trouble and confronting the trouble, but like in such an abstract way. And the being able to rest and pause and withdraw from the world when lockdown happened was a way to bring that abstraction together and feel like I didn't know what was going to come next, but I really felt more prepared and more able to like continue being a person when George Floyd was murdered. And the real key and the real shift is that the visibility and the number of people talking about it and the realness of it has transferred to more places, and it's more sustained, so it's becoming less abstract and more real. But I'm really thinking about how to communicate right now, and how to be a person like in myself, and then how to be a person who is visible, to sum up some of the feelings around what's happening.
Thank you for being willing to share. It is a lot. And I just appreciate your willingness to talk about what's going on and how you've approached it with me.
I think it's important for everyone to be able to, and like, to be talking about it and making it less abstract in any ways that they can. Like, talk to yourself if you don't feel like you have the language to talk to others, and read, but it's important that everyone's getting themselves to a place where they're talking about this and making it less abstract.
I think a lot about the next generation. Partly, you were at the Anderson Center in August, so I don't think you got to see the Tower View students on campus, but maybe you are aware that.
I did, yeah. Was it
Good.
Spark Z?
Oh, Sparks?
Yeah.
That's a different program, but also
Okay.
amazing. You got to interact with the Sparks program while you're
Yeah.
here. Tell me about that.
It was fantastic. I remember being, I forget what day it was, but it was a little bit like, okay, this is happening. Do we need to, like, how much are we being reliant on to organize this? But it ended up just being like however much it was organized was the perfect amount. And it was just a huge group of kids, like at least 30, 40 folks. And we, in the big field by the studios, we gathered some painting materials and some rocks and twigs and just like whatever was around. And we, like, I think it was 3 three visual artists, and we shared a little bit about what we do, and then just like folks, kids love to make things and like do things, so we just like, can we help you make things and do things? And that was a wonderful time for me.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that memory. I am also a big fan of the Sparks program. I think it's both fun, and the kids don't realize it's educational, but they get so much out of that program, for middle school kids here in Red Wing. And then in September, we have, hopefully this September they'll be back because I missed them. We have Tower View Alternative High School here at the Anderson Center. So there are about 60 students who weren't finding success in mainstream high school who go to school in the main building. And they're teachers who are phenomenal and have my respect and admiration. And so if you can picture maybe that some of those students you were working with in the Sparks program are now high schoolers and are thinking that they maybe want to go into a creative field like art or music, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I would say do it. I'd say there's no reason not to. You'll find your way. um I don't know, figure out what you like early on. Don't try, I mean, learn as much as you can, and find, I guess, learn what others want to share with you, but always hold on to what you like for whatever reason or no reason at all. Hold on to that, write it down, and make that what guides you. I think there are a lot of different paths you can take, but I found that I always return to the stuff, to certain things, and I think when I recognize that maybe I'm going to return to this in the future, it it works out well for me. So I say do it for one, find out what you like, listen to others, but really what really you is going to be, I guess, your best guide through the creative world.
I can see based on your presence on the internet that you have been working on music and sound design and soundscapes. I hope I'm representing that well enough in terms of the different forms that you're working in. Could you talk about your work in audio and how that's related to your visual work, or how it's different?
One of my earliest creative pursuits was learning music from my mom, and then later in school and like through undergrad, music and art were right next to each other as something that I switched off between. It's been nice. I definitely took a break during grad school, from making that much music. Um, and during undergrad, music for me was, I played in orchestra and had a classical upbringing, in a classical training in music, which really is about, like, it's about um, pieces that someone wrote. I guess the core is pieces that someone wrote hundreds and hundreds of years ago, some white man. So it's like and then you, like, there's specific ways that your body should be, and like your muscles. It's very much about like training your muscles as well as understanding pitch and time and how to manipulate the instrument. But I came up in like this very, like, there's freedom in it. Like, I don't want to say strictness, but it can feel like correct and incorrect, um, or like a progression of better and better. Um, but I guess like visual art for me has always felt like a place of expansion, and like, we'll look at this, we'll kind of, it doesn't move in a hierarchy as far as what I'm learning and what I'm discovering. And in this, I think this project has been a blending of the two, in that the music, like, I'm not sure what the music or what's going to come out each day when I sit down to work on a part of the project.
So say you have, I don't know, a set amount of time in your day to devote to a creative practice, is there something in how you're feeling or what you're needing within yourself that determines whether you're going to reach for a visual art practice or the music and sound work?
Music has felt like a more public process or I guess a process that can happen with others more so than visual art. Um, I'm not exactly sure why, but like the recording of music and having a musical idea. I think the way just I understand the parts or like look into it and understand what I'm going on. Maybe because I learned that language with other people so much of the time, but like I'm really in at like what like I need to be talking to other people and need to be sharing information right now. But like, what does collaboration in that mean? And it feels like an avenue that could happen more readily. Or yeah, so that is one. That is one.
Yeah. What instrument did you play?
I grew up playing clarinet all through all through middle school, high school, and undergrad. I really want to buy another one at some point.
Especially being part of a band, it's a big group of people and it's a community. It's got its own subculture, I guess, within a big high school, or um, that you form relationships that hopefully feed into and support the thing that you're all creating together. And it's interesting, there are visual arts mediums that have some of that community input. Murals can, depending on who's running their project and what background they come out of and philosophy. But for the most part, visual art has this mythology of the singular genius that doesn't, it's not how it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. And I guess maybe it's like like live music is a thing, but like the making and the hiding and then the like reveal is so much a part of the way that we experience art a lot of the time. And
Yeah,
that is present in music as well, but there isn't necessarily that strong equivalent to like a live performance that happens.
I'm laughing because I never thought about the making, hiding, and reveal of visual art in those terms, but it makes complete sense. That is what happens. And then so much of the art goes into storage, and we've
Yeah.
got all of these amazing objects, and they're being preserved, but they're also in climate controlled basements where no one sees them, which is a whole other conversation that we
Yeah.
can have. I have two more questions I want to hit on, and then
Yeah.
we'll wrap this up. Obviously, we're having conversations in our society about what needs to change. We're more people are getting involved in conversations that have been happening for a long time, as you so aptly pointed out. Um, and obviously, every institution and every um, industry is reckoning with its own ties and history of white supremacy, including the arts. If there were some concrete steps that you would like to see happen in the arts to make what we do more equitable, what are you hoping comes out of these conversations for our particular field?
I think throughout the conversation specifically, but just going forward, like humility, especially when power is present, I think is a, a major thing. Listen to the people who have said it already. I think that's like, I want to come up and say it, and I have a lot of things to say to a lot of institutions, but I don't have the time. Like, how does an institution do the work, generate the energy itself?
Mhm.
there are specific things, but it's
Right. And the institutions have been getting feedback for years. And
yeah,
if they haven't been taking steps to make changes, um, there's some catch up work.
yeah. Give Black trans people money. It's like a great baseline, and continue, I guess this is more individual based, but like continue learning. Everyone in an institution needs to continue learning and needs to have that as, and expanding who you're listening to, and challenging thoughts and places that you feel comfortable. But again, like that's a great start, but again, that's not enough. Like we'll need imagination input into this process. Like I don't even know like all the things that I need to be treated well. Like I know a lot of them, but like it's the way that everything is connected, like imagination and like community is necessary. So yeah.
Thank you for being willing to share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I appreciate you for asking that question. I feel like a lot of more people should be asking that.
And I agree that, I mean, just thinking about where the money comes from and goes to is a really good way of assessing priorities in a capitalist world that we all live in and operate under. So before we wrap this interview up, you just launched a new website.
I
Tell people
did.
where they can find out more about your artwork and what's coming up next.
www.cameronjarvisart.com. It's my newly launched website. Um, like when you were talking about stuff being like the making and then the hiding and then the revealing, like this was a lot of this work. Like I started with work that I made in 2017. So kind of like looking at sketchbooks, it was the stuff I made at Anderson Center and then this next body of work that I made. And really trying to, it felt like making this site felt like not making a new thing, but it was like, let me make this new so that it makes sense for now. So some of the writing on the website, I try to contextualize like me being in Minnesota and then being in Philadelphia and just being in America in general, and contextualize that in terms of how do I feel right now, with the chaos and the change that's happening right now, and hopefully like not necessarily a guide for the future, but hopefully someplace that people can go and be for a bit and then go and like do something to better the world. But I'm like, this is my attempt to like be a person in public, I guess, during quarantine.
So much is happening on the internet now, and it is a good way to share images and get them out into an audience.
Yeah.
And you're on Instagram too, I think?
I'm on Instagram as Cameron Jarvis Art, and then Ronnie Jarvis Music, which is dormant at the moment, but hopefully music project coming. It was gonna be it was gonna be a quarantine release of music, but who knows when, but hopefully soon.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been a project of the Artistic Response Team of Red Wing, which is a collaboration between the Anderson Center, Art Reach, Red Wing Arts, the Sheldon Theater, and Universal Music Center. Thank you, Cameron. Come visit anytime you're in Minnesota, and I will hope that you and I have a chance to continue this conversation at some point in the future.
Thank you so much for welcoming me, Stephanie, and I appreciate the opportunity to be in conversation with you. I'm looking forward to continuing.
Driving through the city in cars over